Good afternoon, everyone. This is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews, and I am your literary ambassador. And today I have a special guest on my channel. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little about you.
Hi, I'm Mershon Niesner, and I'm the author of Mom's Gone, Now What? 10 Steps to Help Daughters Move Forward After Mother Loss. And I'm the motherless daughter of a motherless daughter. So my mother died when I was 8, and her mother died when she was 2. And then, but in addition to telling part of my story, I interviewed 50 other daughters with different kinds of loss experiences for my book.
So, what is your genre and what attracted you to that genre?
Well, the genre is self-help because obviously 10 steps. So it's to help really anyone, not just daughters, but to help people that have had a loss in their life move forward. Now, that's not to say shorten the grieving. It's not to say, dismiss a catastrophic event. It's about still having a vibrant life. So the genre is self-help, and I picked that because of the topic of the book. And I really decided to write a book about mother loss just because, my mother's been gone. I'm 77, and she died when I was 8, so almost 70 years ago. And so, but I've also been widowed. I've been divorced. I've had other losses in my life. And I've had a lot of life experience, and I want to let people know that you can, have a vibrant life. It doesn't end in sorrow and you get stuck there. You can go forward and take all that love with you, but still live a full, vibrant life, which I've done and continue to do.
Yes. How long have you been writing?
Well, I've been writing in some form for many years, but not in the form of a book. I was a child welfare social worker, so I wrote adoptive studies and things like that, business things. And then I owned a marketing communications business, so I wrote video scripts and newsletters, etc. And then it's only been in recent years, about 6 years, no, not quite. Yeah, almost 6 years that I wrote this book. I wrote another book several years ago, but I kind of don't count that. That was sort of a back of the room sales. But this was my first really serious book. And then in a couple of weeks, I'm going to publish a second book, which is historical fiction. Maybe I'll come back and we can talk about that.
Yes,
It's completely different. Completely different.
yes.
So I'm a newbie. I'm a newbie in terms of being an author.
Oh, okay.
I published this first book on my 75th birthday.
Wow. Okay. Now tell us about your book.
Well, it's about mother loss. It's vignettes. It has the 10 steps. For instance, it starts with step 1, tell your story. So let people know about your loss if they're appropriate people that are going to care about you and are safe. But to tell your story. So that's how it starts. And I start with my story. And then I tell other stories from the people that I interviewed. And then some of the other steps involve just reaching out to other people when you begin to get outside of yourself and do things for others and get involved in the community, etc. That really helps you move forward. For some people, it's their spiritual connection, taking good care of yourself. The whole health piece is also another important part of moving forward after loss. So those are some of the steps. Of course, there's many others, but that gives you an idea. And then in some of the steps are less about a step than it is about dealing with some of the things that come about with mother loss, like dealing with be alert to the abandonment fears. Oftentimes people who have had a loss, especially an early loss like I did, have fears of abandonment, which I certainly have experienced. And then just recognize sort of the dark side. We like to idealize people who have passed, but they were no more perfect than anyone else. So being aware that there is a whole nother side to perhaps your relationship, especially daughters that whose mothers died when they were teenagers, maybe they didn't have the best relationship. So that's kind of being aware of the dark side and acknowledging that.
What was your inspiration?
Well, of course, my inspiration for this particular topic was my own mother loss experience. And more importantly, it was being in lots of groups, both years ago, live groups, therapy type groups, and more recently, groups online, where I was just heart sick when I heard daughters say, I don't want to live anymore. I don't want to go on. And it just broke my heart. It broke, literally, because I know that their mothers would want them to have a joyful life. Mm-hmm. And I also know that it's possible. So that was the specific inspiration for this book. But the story for the inspiration for writing a book at all is a good story. It's a woman I met literally in the street in front of my house. She happened to be talking to some workmen. I went out, we got to know each other a little bit. 2 hours later, she had convinced me, after learning about me, she had convinced me that I needed to write a book. I needed to join the local writers group. I needed to join a critique group that she was a part of. Mm-hmm. And so this was about 2017. And Virginia is 95 years old.
Wow.
She's still going strong. She's still one of my biggest supporters. And as soon as I finished this book and I gave it to her, and so forth, she says, okay, what's next? so she, she's a real inspiration.
Okay. Can you read an excerpt from your book?
Of course, I'd be delighted. And I need to explain to the audience where this comes from. I interviewed a young girl who at the time, she was, I believe she was 15, and now she's 20 something. Mm-hmm. But anyway, her mother, she had a sister that was, when they found out their mother had early onset Alzheimer's, these two daughters were 11 and 13. So by the time I talked with her, she was 15 years old. Her mother had just recently been institutionalized in dementia, memory support with early onset Alzheimer's. And this woman was only in her 40s. But this young girl her mother was at home for, quite a while before she had to leave home. So this young girl really did a lot of caretaking. She gave up her high school life, essentially, to be home when her mother was home and to watch out for her, etc. So this is a part of a school assignment. She wrote several pieces of poetry, but this is one of them. And it's about her mother and her life with her mother. And by the way, her mother has since died. But she and her sister are in college. They're doing okay. So, and you have to excuse me. I've had a cold, so I'm gonna take a drink here. So this is her poem, "Don't You Forget About Me" by Allie Wheat. I cannot say the words, they are too hard to say. I rue the moment that I fade, The memories went away. I had a beautiful mom whose mind went one day. I had a mom who was too sick to stay. I blame the disease that stripped her that way. I hate that I won't see her on my wedding day. I feel the pain of her suffering. I carry it every day. I hate when people assume she's fine. She looks okay. I just need her back, please, only today. I know it's selfish, but I pray. I only have the memories in my head set on replay. I miss her arms around me. Was it just yesterday? I wasted our time begging to go play. I missed all the stories from back in the day. I had the pictures and the perfume you oversprayed. I found the strength to take it day by day. I will see you again, Mom, someday.
Wow.
Yeah, powerful,
Yes.
powerful words of a very young daughter. Yeah, powerful words. And their family, they have, early onset is hereditary. And they do have a family history. Her grandfather died of early onset, and now her mother. And so that's another piece that sort of hangs over her head, of course. And but her family, while her mother was still alive and still fairly able, they were part of a documentary film about early onset Alzheimer's. So, they've done a lot to try to help the understanding of what this is about. Yeah.
Okay. What did you learn while writing this book?
I learned it's really hard work.
Yes.
Writing a book is really, really hard work. And as I said, I've done a lot of writing in my day. At one time I published about 16 newsletters, and, I've written some major scripts and stuff, but writing a book is the hardest of all. And so I learned that. I learned you have to be absolutely committed. And for
Yes.
this book in particular, there was no option of giving up because I had 50 women counting on me. Some of the women I interviewed said, I'm telling you things I've never told anyone before. There were always tears, there was always laughter. I had to do this for them and could not let them down. So I was highly motivated. I was really highly motivated. The other thing I learned that it's really, really important to have an excellent editor.
Yes.
And I would never try to self-edit a book. And when I discovered my wonderful editor, Elaine Taylor, I discovered her at a writers' conference, the Jackson Hole, Wyoming Writers Conference. And she's fabulous, just fabulous. And when I gave her the first draft of this, first of all, she said, well, what do you want this to be? Do you want this to be biography? Do you want it to be self-help? What do you want it to be? So in the end, I literally rewrote the whole thing. So, and it's, a much different and much, much better book. She also edited my second book. So the rewrite is arduous. It's one thing to, do that first version, you're in the moment and all that. It's okay. But to do the rewrite where every line she says, she has a question or she has a comment, I'm like, oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of the other things I learned. And then, it's a lot of work to market a book and promote a book. And I published this book on my birthday, July the 11th, 2020, the smack dab middle of COVID. Mm-hmm. So I had a whole marketing plan that I threw in the garbage and started all over. And but many ways it worked to my advantage because I did groups all over the country via Zoom and was able to do things that it would have been a Herculean effort for me to do all that traveling. So so in the long run, it was kind of to my benefit, but it was a challenge, a
Yes.
new world for all of us, right?
Yes, yes, yes. What are the key messages in the book?
Well, I think the key messages, that's a great question. I think one of them is just don't give up, never give up. And somewhere I quote, I hope I can find it real quickly, but um, uh, well, it doesn't matter. But, I quoted some folks who really had some really, not just people I interviewed, but people in history that have had some really, really rough circumstances that never gave up. And so I think that that's a lot of it. My step 10, the last step is accept the hand you're dealt. Nobody gets through life unscathed. And it always amazes me that people think their mother or whoever it is, their father, whatever, are never going to die. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
they will. So I think that certainly that's a lesson that I hope people, kind of come away with. It's like, this is life, folks. Shit happens. Excuse me, but it just does. And I've had a very blessed life. Some people might look at it and say, oh my gosh, you've had a lot of tragedy. But I look at it as having a very, very blessed life. But I've accepted things happen along the way. Right now I'm in the middle of a move and I don't know where I'm moving to. So, oh well, I figure that, you accept what's going on in your life. So I would say that's part of it. I think some of the others was I learned a lot about Alzheimer's because my mother died of leukemia. She died at 35. That's a very different experience than some of the people I talked to who were themselves maybe in their 60s or beyond, and their mothers were perhaps elderly. But it's the double death. They die as the person they are. Their daughter knows them to be, and then they die again. So that experience, to really experience that intimately with people was a real learning experience for me. Yeah. So,
What do you want readers to take away from the book?
well, I want them, to take away, I think, a sense of empathy. Reading all these stories, it's not, people think, oh gosh, it's a book about mother loss, it would be really sad, but it isn't. There's miracle stories, there's just amazing stories of strong women who have overcome things in their life. So actually it's quite positive, but I want them to come away with tools to help them move forward, even if their mother hasn't died. Chances are somebody's that's important to them is gonna die eventually. So I want them to come away from reading this with some tools that will help them, and just I don't know, a sense of life is special every day. We have to treasure every day. My late husband just literally dropped dead at 53. So, that was another lesson for me that life can just change literally in a heartbeat, So those are, and I do talk a little bit about that in here too. So I think those are some of the takeaways I would hope they have.
Okay. What is your writing process like?
Oh my goodness. Well, I really don't, I mean, I have a sense of where I'm going. I don't really use an outline per se. Now, writing this book was a completely different process than writing a historical fiction.
Mhm.
So, writing this book, um, I really thought about my own story, and I had done a lot of work with that in therapy, and I had a lot of, just good information. But so I started with finding daughters, and some of the stories in this book are from people I know, and some of them are from utter strangers, complete strangers that I came across. So the process was gathering all this data, all this information, all these interviews, and then looking at how different people coped in different ways, and what are the threads that run through that. And therefore, I came up with 10 steps. So it was a lot of sort of, head work in terms. And then once I had that, then it was, I put the stories in according to the steps. So there's some people that could have had a little story in several steps, but I chose their story to represent certain steps. So that was the process. But in general, I'm more of a pantser than I just sort of start and hope for the best. I don't know. My whole life is like that. I just jump into life, and I'm optimistic, and I just have confidence, and I just hope for the best. So, but my historical fiction book I wrote during COVID, and it was a lifesaver mentally for me, because every afternoon, couldn't go anywhere, couldn't see anybody. I was very strict. I'm old, I had to be careful.
Mhm.
So every afternoon, I took myself to the prairies of Nebraska, and I just wrote this lovely story. So that was a very different process, and it was a lot more fun. It was a lot more fun in terms of working out of my head. On the other hand, it was more difficult because, I mean, it is a story of my great grandparents. So I did have some factual information, but a lot had to just generate from my research and so forth. Whereas this book is real people, real events, real stories. So very different. Yeah, challenging.
What do you think your role is in the literary industry?
What's my role? Well, for one thing, to show that old ladies can still write books. you know,
Okay.
age is not a factor. Age is not a factor. Absolutely not. And I think that as we age, we hopefully have more wisdom. So, I wrote a book at 75 that I certainly wouldn't have written at 25 or 35 or whatever. So, and my whole life, really, since I was a young girl doing social work, my whole life has really kind of been centered around helping women become the best they can be. And the last career I had, official career before I started writing, was I was a life coach. And as a life coach, I'm a certified life coach. And I worked mostly with women, and mostly with women entrepreneurs, helping them achieve success and, have a great life. So I just see this book as another step in that kind of thread of my life of helping women move forward. Um, I was really blessed with a great dad, which made all the difference in my life. So I understand that too. I understand the importance of people in your life. But so I guess those are what I how I see myself. I know I'm never going to be a rich and famous author, but that's okay. It's okay if I make a difference in a handful of lives, that it makes the whole arduous task worth it. It really does.
Tell us about your publishing journey.
Well, it's not what I hoped it would be, frankly. When I did this book, I had very high hopes in getting an agent and traditionally publishing. And I did a lot of work around querying, and I have a website, I have a blog, I have everything, your social media presence, everything you're supposed to do, to attract an agent and therefore a publisher up the road. But, and this sounds morbid, but I didn't think of it when COVID hit. So this book was done basically by the first of the year, the first of 2020. Mm-hmm. So when COVID hit and I was in the midst of still trying to get an agent, etc., I said to myself, I don't want to die with this book in my computer. And like I said, that sounds morbid, but it wasn't. It was just reality. I mean, people were dying right and left, and especially people my age. And so I just decided right then and there I was going to self-publish. So I found a good design, and it had already been edited and proofed and so forth professionally. But so I found myself a good designer who did the cover and designed the interior and designed the ebook. And then I self-published, like I say, on my 75th birthday. Wow. So that was my process, not what I had envisioned, but I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I did it.
What has influenced you the most about being an author?
What, I'm sorry?
What has influenced you the most about being an author?
Well, my friend Virginia that I told you about, my 95-year-old friend Virginia, if it wasn't for her, I just don't think I would have done it. I wouldn't have thought about writing a book at that stage of my life. I wouldn't have. And she hasn't published a book, but she's a lovely writer, even to this day. She's a lovely writer. So Virginia, and then she was correct in getting me involved in a writers group, a critique group. And so I have felt very supported through the process and challenged. Critique groups are challenging. Mm-hmm. So I think I would say that's it.
What has been the greatest accomplishment thus far in your literary career?
Well, I guess just getting a book out there, getting it on the shelves, getting it on Amazon. It's in several libraries. It's in the local bookstores. It's in the local gift stores. It's on a lot of people's shelves, hopefully they've read it. I don't know. But so I would say just simply finishing the task, getting it out there is probably it. Yeah.
Okay, you say you got a historical fiction. So what are you currently working on right now?
I know, that's it. Well, it's called The Bootmaker's Wife. And my great-grandfather was a bootmaker. He was in the Civil War, and after the Civil War, he went to Nebraska, and he was a bootmaker at a Fort Hartsuff in the Sandhills of Nebraska. And he and my great-grandmother lived in a sod house. And my dad, who was a great storyteller, he's long gone, probably he'd be like 105 now or something. But anyway, he was a great storyteller. So he used to tell me stories about his grandparents. And so I took those stories as kind of the nugget of the book. And then all the rest is either made up or, researched. I mean, the actual era. I research very thoroughly. But it's a wonderful story because my great grandmother was not even 15 when she was a part. Well, in my story, I'm not sure about if this is true part about her being on the Oregon Trail, but in my book, she she's on the trail going from Illinois to Nebraska. She meets her fiance in Nebraska. He's 20 years her senior. That's all true. She turned 15 just after they were married. That's all true. And then they journeyed north to the sandhills of Nebraska. They did live in a sod house. And then many of the other little stories. Oh, he had an encounter with Jesse James. That was true. But the story just takes place over 14 months. So it's this sort of snippet of time of their life on the prairie, and it's of course it has a lot. It has the story of hardship. It's a hard life, but because I was the one writing it, it's also a story of strong women and how important friendships were, women to women, and how that made all the difference in her life, Elizabeth and others. So, and it has a lot of foodie stuff because I'm a foodie. So anyway, it's a lovely story, and it's like I say, yes, there's some real drama and hardship in it, but overall, it's a lovely story of this couple beginning their life in on the prairie of Nebraska. And I'm a Nebraska girl. I was raised not in the Sandhills, but I was raised in central Nebraska, and my ancestors on both sides were Nebraska pioneers. So that was fun. It was fun to promote my state of Nebraska.
Yes, yes, yes. Now, how can readers find you and your books?
Okay. Well, they can find me on Amazon, and they just can do Mom's Gone Now What. Oh, if I have time, I have to tell you this brief story. Literally, when I published my book and I went to Amazon to see it. Now, I had researched this title like everyone does. Somehow I missed it. So when I went to Amazon to see my book, there was another book there called My Mom's Gone Now What. I'm like, oh no, this is terrible. So I tracked that author down, called her on the phone, because I thought, oh my gosh, she's going to sue me, right? I tracked her down. Her name is Christine. Well, that was 2.5 years ago. We become best friends, literally soul sisters. We've promoted our books together. It was a wonderful. It was just a wonderful outcome. It was almost meant to be. Anyway, so when they go to Amazon, you'll see two similar, but mine is Mom's Gone Now What by Mershon Niesner. So there's Amazon. And then, they can find out more about me. They can go to mershonniesner.com. And then I would really love to have listeners go to motherloss.blog. Now, you would think a blog about mother loss would be really depressing, but I blog about everything, not just mother loss. I blog about life in general, and it's really a positive message. It's a short message. There's coaching questions each time, and there's an affirmation each time. So I encourage them to sign up for motherloss.blog. And then you can find me other the usual places too, but that's the main place.
Okay. Is there anything else you would like to add before we close?
No, this has been delightful. It's been I see your emails over and over and over. It's just so lovely to meet you, Queenie. It really is.
Thank you.
And now I can put a face with that name and with what I get on the internet. So it's been a delight. It's been really fun.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
show your book one more time. We see the cover.
Here it is. And you can't tell, but when you order it, which I hope you do, the pictures on the cover, you might be able to see this is my mother. This really where is she? This gorgeous lady. There's a gorgeous lady right there. She looks like a model. She was a model. That's the young woman who died of early onset Alzheimer's. So all the pictures on the cover are from the stories, some of the stories in the book. Just, I think that makes it special if you know that. Yes. And then down in this corner, actually, that is, I don't know if you can see it right here. That's my mother just after her mother died, and that's my grandfather. So special. Yeah, it's a special cover.
Thank you so much for coming in today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. And thanks for accommodating my glitch. So I appreciate it so much.
You're welcome. This is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews. Happy reading. Bye, y'all.
Bye.